Hello, friends. It is time for reading. We've got a great story today, and we talked about things and subjects that tie in to other things and subjects, and we're always kind of on the lookout for those. Just like in spelling, the last class we've been talking about those double consonants, and we've looked at those in some words, like our English that we did today for our English game. Well, this is no exception. This story that I found is a story that ties in to a lot of our subjects, and I want you to think of what other subject this story reminds you of when we read it today. The story is called Lead Lines, and when we talk about homophones later, remind me of this story because the word lead can be spelled the same way, but pronounced two different ways, like lead and lead, much like the word read and red can be pronounced two different ways. So as we get a little further in English, we'll talk about that again. We'll revisit. It's all tie-ins. Okay, so let me get your paper ready for today. Share your screen. We'll get your paper ready for today. I thought I started one up here, but maybe not. Okay, we're going to do just a plain piece of paper. You're going to turn it fat ways. You can even turn it tall ways if you want, but I think it works best if you do it this way. And let's get a title. The title for today we're going to do Lead Lines. And then we'll do another text box over here. Up, and we'll put our name and our date. Where'd it go? There it is. Okay. Nice straight line. This is a feature that I wish they had in our Jamboard, but unfortunately they don't. It lets you make it just a nice straight, kind of straight line. Oh, you hear Marilyn back there playing? Get a toy. Let's see what she's doing. There she is. She's back in the back there. You're over there on the, let me see her. There she goes. Cat with the toy. Got stuff to do today. She's playing with her toy. Okay, so this is our paper that we're using today, and it's got our title, our name and date, and it's got 4 spaces up here to write 4 pieces of the story that you see today. Okay, so let's get back to it. We'll read our story, and here it is. All right. It says, one day, while Molly was visiting a maritime museum. Maritime museum. Have you ever been to a maritime museum? What does the word maritime mean? I look around me and I look at all the pictures on the wall back here. I can guess that it probably has something to do with the sea. I can see a ship here. I can see a seagull back here. I can see another ship over here. It probably has something to do with the ocean, the sea. So she is looking, she's walking in the museum, and she sees this right here, and this is called a lead line. And she says, a lead line. I wonder what that was used for. The next page says, suddenly Molly finds herself on a sailing ship. The ship is a little lost and it's getting dark. The sailors know the ship is somewhere near the coast of France. The sailors say, let's put the lead line in the water to see how deep it is. Oh, well, there's our clue. A lead line helps them determine how deep the water is. And then Molly says, can I try it? Are you seeing any picture here that might remind you of some other subject that we're studying? Picture you may have seen in another book. There are knots every 10 fathoms on the deep sea lead line. The number of knots represents a multiple of 10 fathoms. Multiples, we've been talking about these when we count by numbers. We count by 2s, we count by 5s, we count by 4s. In this case, we're counting by 10s. So they would take this lead line, they would take this rope. They would take the rope and every 10 fathoms, they would put a knot in it, okay? And then they would lower it into the water, and then the number of knots that were showing told you how many fathoms deep the water was. So for example, if this one says that the water was 60 fathoms deep right here, we can determine that 6 knots were showing. And by doing that, we look at the 6 knots and then we count by 10s. We have 6 knots and we're counting by 10s. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and 60. So that's how they determined that it was 60 fathoms deep. On the bottom of the lead weight, the sailors put sticky stuff called tallow to gather some sand from the seabed. That's how they would know that they'd gotten it all the way to the bottom. And Molly's lowering it into the ocean and she says, wow, sure is deep. Molly pulls the rope back up. Check what kind of sand is stuck to the lead. There is sandy ooze and black fishy stones inside. The sailors open a chart of the coast of France, which has details about the seabed sand on it. 60 fathoms, sandy ooze, and black fishy stones. What do you see right here? Some cursive writing. There we go. It's a tie-in. It's all a tie-in. And then this is a map of Brittany, France, and Penmarch Point in France. And this must be where the ship is in our story today. We are near Penmarch Point. Okay. And then she gets back to the inn and she's all of a sudden back in the museum. She says, so that's what it was used for. Wouldn't that be fun to see an object in a museum and all of a sudden be transported back to when that was used so you could discover? They had a series of books out that used to do that. Remember the Magic Treehouse books? Those were really good for showing. The kids in the treehouse would go back in time, and the book would be about that particular thing that they learned about back in time. They went back to Egypt one time and all kinds of places. That's a fascinating series. Maybe we'll read one sometime if we can find one. But that's how Molly found out what a lead line was used for. The end. I hope you liked that story. Now let's get back to our whiteboard. There it is. And we've got 4 panels in here, and I want you to tell me 4 different things that you remembered about this story. 4 different pictures. Draw 4 pictures for me. If you'd rather use words, you can certainly write words on here. It's up to you. But give me 4 things that you remember about this story today. And talking about tie-ins, we saw tie-ins with handwriting. We saw a little bit of cursive writing on it. But what was another tie-in? When you looked at the ship, did that remind you of any of the ships that we've seen lately? Where have we seen ships lately? Maybe social studies? Right, because we've been talking about trading and colonists that have come over from England. Now, the difference is today in our story, these sailors were from France. And France is another country, not England and not America that we've been talking about in social studies. But if you notice some of the similarities, like the ship, and maybe their clothes were a little bit old-fashioned. So there's a tie-in to what we've been working on in social studies today. And speaking of social studies, that is what we've got next. I've got great videos for you. We'll bring those up next as soon as you finish this work for me in reading. Have a good rest of the day, and I will see you shortly for social studies.